Do you know how to copy other artists without stealing from them? Even better, do you know how to harness all of the inspiring things around you so that it can empower your art practice without ripping them off? Let's talk about it as I show you what I painted last week. So the week started with these simple bouquets. And I say simple lovingly because when I started painting in 2017, this is what I desperately pined to be able to do, to just sit down and seemingly whip out really cute little sweet bouquets. And I didn't have the skills to do it. I simply was a sheer beginner. I didn't have the brush skills, I didn't know how much water to mix in with the paint. I didn't know the process, if I should paint the leaves first or paint the flowers first, if I should sketch first or just paint. And it's taken this many years of practice to be able to sit down and do this. And so for me, this really just is a mark of triumph in continuing to practice and seeing yourself grow. And for those wondering, I'm happy to share the process of how I did this page. So if you look closely, you can see here that there's a little bit of a pencil line. And so the very first thing that I did was with a pencil, I went around and I divided this whole page up into organic shapes. So if you squint your eyes, you can see that this bouquet is a circle and this bouquet is a circle. This one is just kind of organically shaped. It's not a shape that has a name, or maybe like a rounded triangle maybe. This one is an oval. Same thing over here. And then after that, I mixed up some green paint and I painted all of the bouquets. And I used the outer shape that I drew with the pencil and tried to think of, how could a bouquet elegantly fit in this shape? What direction are the leaves going, or where is the movement in it? And so it was a really fun exercise in just playing with, the natural organic shapes of the stems and the leaves. So I painted the bouquets for I painted the leaves for all the bouquets, and then I went through and added the pink and yellow dots for all of the flowers. I let that dry, and then I added in the details on top. And so it felt simple and fun, but it took years of practice to get to that point, and I'm proud of myself. These were painted during an art date with friends, and I had asked my friends, what should I paint? Which, first of all, is a tip in itself. Ask your friends or ask anybody, what should you paint? They will be happy to give you prompts. And my friend Ashley, who owns a stationery shop, if you want to check it out, she suggested I paint something to do with a lizard. And my second tip here is to only paint things that truly feel intriguing, fun, curious, like a fun challenge to you. Don't take on things just because, or at least that's my advice, because whenever I do that, when I force myself, I don't enjoy the process and I tend to not like the result. And so I lovingly told my friend, "Thank you so much for that idea. I don't want to paint a lizard." And she rewarded me with her second idea, which was to paint lamb on fruit. And so that's what you're seeing here. And the main process thing I can share is that, this last page, I painted all of the leaves for the first layer, and then I painted all of the flowers. In this case, I really took it one vignette at a time, starting with this one here. And I would start by finding a reference photo of a lamb. I like to use Unsplash for this. In this case, I saw a picture of a lamb lying down, and I thought, well, he could easily be laying on the top of a really big strawberry. And so I would paint the base shape of the lamb, the base shape of the strawberry, and the strawberry top, and let that dry, and then paint the details on top, and then move on to another lamb. It got really fun when I would see them in different, lamb in different poses that were really like this one jumping in the air and trying to imagine how it could be interacting with the fruit. So thank you, Ashley, for the idea. It was really fun to paint these. So on this day, I really, really wanted to paint, but I just had truly no idea what to paint. And I just couldn't come up with anything on my own that sounded intriguing. Does that sound familiar to you? My way of getting through this is to find some piece of inspiration as my doorway that is so exciting that I just can't help but paint. And in this case, I was looking at a book called American Folk Art by Jean Lipman and Alice Winchester. And not even getting into the book, just looking at the cover, there's this quilt that has all of these really beautiful, simple, floral folk motifs. And I love the really bold coloring of it and the bold motifs. And so I wanted to try my hand at something similar. And so I didn't copy it one for one. You know, obviously the colors are different and some of the motifs are not matching up with what's over there, but it also is clearly inspired by that. And so whenever I'm painting from somebody else's artwork, in this case, a quilt, or a photo of a quilt in a book, so 3 pieces of artwork, right? I never want to pass that work off as my own. And so even though I'm showing you this here as my work in my sketchbook, I'm going to make sure to mention the book, the author's names as I have. Unfortunately, this quilt that I'm painting this from doesn't have a quilter's name with it. It just has the name of the people who own the collection that it came from. But that is really how to kind of keep your integrity intact as an artist when you are copying from others. And you may be asking, why would you copy from others? If if you have to toe that line, why would you even play with it at all? And imagine somebody is learning how to play an instrument, right? And they usually start by playing or trying to copy songs that they have already heard before. Imagine if people who wanted to learn instruments had to write a song as they were trying to learn how to play the notes. It would be almost an impossible mission for them. And so as artists, similarly, visual artists, sometimes it's helpful to have something to copy along with just so that you can learn the quote-unquote notes of the brushwork or the shapes or the simple shapes and compositions that make up a piece, or how to layer things in order to create a picture. However, similar to artists or similar to musicians, you aren't going to pass off Stairway to Heaven as your own song. Obviously, that is something that you're just playing to learn, and that's what I'm doing here. So I'm not going to take this piece and put it in my professional portfolio, even if it is only loosely copied from that quilt, because at the end of the day, it is copied, and I wouldn't want someone to loosely copy my work like that and be able to make money off of it or try to strip my credit from it. And so I'm not going to do that for them either. This piece is the same process, the same thought. It's from the same book, but it is from a different piece. It's based on a watercolor of a Shaker community, and you can see that it's not one for one, right? I didn't paint the faces in the middle and I didn't paint the trees at the same scale. But again, I did loosely copy it. There's no denying that I was looking at those trees while following these lines of these trees and following the lines of these branches. And so the thing that I really took away from here was ways to interpret trees and to really break away from how they are in real life, which is something that I'm working on practicing. I also got a lot of precision brushwork practice in with trying to get these really thin lines and controlling the arc while keeping things loose. And so this isn't something I'm going to submit professionally. It's not something that I'm going to tie my name to because it's copied from somebody else, but it was great practice and I really enjoyed it. When we get to these 2 pieces, I intensified my copying. So whereas the last 2 were more loosely inspired and loosely copied by what I was seeing, these 2 pieces I was trying to copy more directly. I started with this piece on the right. It's called Girl in Red with Her Cat and Dog, and it's an oil piece from the 1830s by Amy Phillips. This one on the left is inspired by or copied from Boy with Rooster, which is a watercolor from 1815 by Jacob Mantell. So with these pieces, I tried to more directly copy it, even though you can still tell, I'm not going to be able to slip these in for the originals and fool anybody. However, I also cannot deny that these are, derivative of those pieces that exist already. The main takeaway I want to say with both of these paintings is my brain was confused as to why I wanted to copy them, because I can't use them professionally, and what's the point of copying somebody else's work? And yet, I really enjoyed my time doing it. Like I really just got in the zone and got into the flow state because I was looking so closely at each piece and really paying attention to the shapes and the color and figuring out what I would do next. B, it really helped improve my skills and take on portraits and figures, which is something that I'm kind of a little bit more scared to do. In this case, figures interacting with animals. That seems something that's kind of scary and beyond my skills, and yet by copying, I was really able to spend time and do that. And see the final results, even though these aren't mine, I won't try to claim them. These are by the original artists that paint them. They are credit to them. I still love opening my pages and seeing these. I love the texture from this dry brush that I got. I love the smoothness of the rooster or the chicken's feathers over here. I love their soft cheeks and how I simplified the faces, both in the animals and the people, differently than is on the paintings. And so copying, as long as you are not trying to take credit or pass it off as your own, is such a wonderful use of time for artists, and I cannot recommend it enough. And this last piece, this is the last one I have for you. It's from that same book, but it's called The First Oddfellows in America. It's an oil painting. The picture in the book is in black and white, and it's from 1850 without any artist's name. And again, I was just really drawn to this image of this beautiful, almost symmetrical ship. The shot, the painting looked almost like Wes Anderson-y to me. I pictured it as a movie scene, and I instantly saw this beautiful teal color in my mind as being kind of the backdrop to this. And again, when you feel that pull towards something, when something just kind of gives you that feeling, I think it's so important to move towards it, and it's something that could be really, really great for your sketchbook. And so in this case, even though, again, this isn't my piece, I'm not going to pass it off as my own. The time I spent copying it was really valuable to me because I got to figure out, the values to make this island back here be visible, but not so visible that it fights with the main figure, which is the ship right here. I painted clouds for the first time that aren't like cartoony clouds, and trying to make them, again, stand out against the sky and have some texture, but not fight against the ship. And then the ship itself, trying to draw all of these little lines and keep them precise, but not messy. And then, of course, the water itself, figuring out how I wanted to layer the paint, adding the darks in first for those deep swells, and then adding the white on top for where the waves are crashing against the side of the boat and spilling over each other. So again, brushwork, color mixing, composition, figuring out how to create a picture, how to build it up. In this case, I painted the entire background teal and then, painted everything on top. Whereas in this one, I painted the girl in her dress and painted the background around it. Taking the time to copy was a very, very valuable use of my time. And that is what I painted last week.